and ex-author by Apttus. And we will be recording this webinar. So we did have quite a few people that wanted to join the webinar but could not due to scheduling conflicts. So we will be recording this, and this will be available on the Endowance website here very, very soon. So without further ado, we will get going. And if you have any troubles seeing the slides, please let me know. We have all the lines muted, so feel free to use the chat area and we'll try to respond as quickly as possible. Okay, so the agenda for today, we will cover introductions. Then we will move into the CRM End User Adoption Challenge, and then talk about the end user adoption solution to that challenge, which for this webinar comprises two key areas. From Endowance, the Enterprise Business Readiness Methodology that we call EBRM, coupled with ex-author by Apttus. After our short presentation, we will have a product demonstration, and then we will move into Q&A. And again, if you have any questions or answers, please type them into the chat area, and then we will address them at that specific point in time. So again, my name is John Duncan. I am the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Endowance Solutions. I have over 20 years of executive and business development experience in Silicon Valley, ranging from Siebel, Oracle, and now at Endowance. And then we also have Jarrett Casper on the line. And Jarrett, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, John, and good morning, everyone. Jarrett Casper with Apttus. I've been with Apttus for a little over 4 years, and I'll be taking you through our ex-author product today.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jarrett. Okay, let's move right on in. The CRM User Adoption Challenge. User adoption is the most critical ingredient to achieve tangible CRM payback. And as you can see here, I've noted also some analysts who have validated this concern. So Gartner notes that user acceptance is your biggest hurdle to a successful CRM implementation. On the left, this is actually a pie chart that was developed by Forrester Research, and noted the most common issue to a successful CRM implementation is slow user adoption. And user adoption challenges persist because basically people are resistant to change. And we're also very comfortable with the routines and the tools that we use today. And change is always scary for a lot of people. And most importantly, if the change in the CRM application does not improve productivity, especially on a daily basis, people will not use it. So quite simply, if a CRM solution doesn't make a team member's jobs easier or better in some way, they simply won't use it. And that typically will kill any CRM project. So how do you get your arms around this to ensure that you have maximum user adoption with your Salesforce CRM implementation? Well, success quite simply equals strategic planning with a detailed methodology plus game-changing technology. As we mentioned, you're going to have Salesforce, the leader in on-demand CRM tools, and then you also have ex-author by Apttus, which we'll talk about. But the three key points for success are, number one, to obtain executive and stakeholder buy-in. And stakeholders, I mean leaders as well as users within sales, marketing, and services organizations. Number two, develop an implementation game plan that is very detailed and very thorough. We call that from Endowance the Enterprise Business Readiness Methodology. And then number three, invest in tools that make CRM simple, like Salesforce, like ex-author, and leverage existing applications for enhanced productivity. So a little bit about Endowance. Who is Endowance? Endowance. We were born in the cloud in 2007. We're headquartered in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we do have a global presence. Most of our team members have over 15 years of business experience as well as significant CRM expertise, and we focus on business process improvement with in-depth technical knowledge. We have over 300 plus successful Salesforce projects, and we also are ERP integration experts. So for any of you that are looking or grappling with integrating your Salesforce with leading ERP applications from Infor or Oracle, we're certainly an organization that can help you tackle that problem. We're one of the few or the only Infor certified partner that is certified to integrate between Salesforce and Infor ERP. We also have full integration capabilities to other enterprise applications. We leverage Jitterbit, Enforce, and also AppExchange products such as XAuthor and others that can have transformational impact on your organization. Endowance's industry expertise spans over 16 different verticals. And overall, our focus is on business consulting and enterprise business readiness with the focus on maximizing end user adoption. So how is success defined? It's not just defined by the technology. A lot of organizations will simply buy Salesforce and try to implement it on their own, and what they very often find is that technology will not fix all of our issues. They think it will, but it will not. And so implementing enterprise applications is not about the tool set or solution, but it's a complex business change effort, which we'll talk about. Implementation problems are rooted in the application of technology to people and business processes. So the overall challenge that, as I've stated, users or organizations have in terms of having a successful CRM project is maximizing user adoption. And that really covers 4 key areas. Strategy, having a very thorough strategy incorporating the corporate vision, business value metrics, business alignment culture change, to governance, having that executive sponsorship and governance structure in place, implementing a thorough process, aligning with strategies and tactics to drive business for the organization, as well as leveraging best-of-breed technology. And really the key is to have a broad look at the overall enterprise application implementation and have a process, an assessment process that also spans planning. So having, as I mentioned, executive buy-in, business case scenarios developed, project plans, implementing a steering committee, and having training plans, then moving on into data collection, which is extraordinarily important. Interviewing key constituents such as your executives, end users, leaders of the key pillars within your organization, sales, marketing, and service, and then developing a multidisciplined project team that will analyze the data collected so that you can develop strategic and tactical goals as it relates to your CRM implementation. And then also having an action plan, so a detailed report, actionable plan to implement your Salesforce implementation, focusing on measures. I'll talk a little bit more about that, and then continually assess how your project is going. Are you meeting your goals and objectives? Is it maximizing end user adoption? Putting yourself in the user's shoes, is it easy to use? Are they getting the data that they need to make themselves more successful? So some best practice examples. KISS, keep it simple. You know, a lot of people try to, when they're looking at implementing an application as powerful as Salesforce, they try to implement the entire solution in one fell swoop, when it's usually not good to try to eat the apple in one bite. So look at the application out of the box first, look at some very key areas that will drive immediate end user adoption, i.e. your sales team, and start analyzing the business value and metrics that will ensure that they're using the application. Are they logging activities? Are they managing their pipeline? Is marketing doing campaigns within the app, within Salesforce? And most importantly, is it driving revenue for the organization? A lot of organizations will also couple this implementation with a culture change effort, and this is actually a great time to do that. As you're looking to map out and through the analysis that you've done with the executives and key stakeholders, what are the short and long-term goals and objectives of your organization, and implement methodologies within Salesforce to drive the change that you're looking for. And that ties into the next point, change management. If the application doesn't reinforce where you're trying to strategically move as an organization long-term, it's going to go counter to what your value proposition is, and ultimately your revenue and your overall customer experience is going to suffer. Data quality, extremely important point. One of the key aspects that we help organizations do is make sure that the data within their Salesforce implementation is absolutely the best it can possibly be. We've all heard of the saying, garbage in, garbage out. Well, if you don't have all of your key prospects, customers in your database, it will make it extraordinarily difficult for your sales, marketing, and services organizations to be effective. So again, make sure that your processes and strategies are aligned, as I've noted. Implement that within the application. That will drive both short and long-term success for the organization. And just as importantly, give the users access to the information needed. So does your Salesforce implementation clearly note who are your prospects? Who are your customers? What are the target verticals that we're going after? Do we have the information needed to correctly articulate our value proposition to our prospects? Does marketing have the information that they need to create detailed and thorough upsell and cross-sell campaigns to drive the growth of the back end of the funnel? And then functionality and usability. Is it easy to use? Does it have mobile capabilities? Are your users looking forward to using the application? It really makes them much more productive than versus trying to do it, on napkins on a day-to-day basis. And the last point is integration. So tying into your ERP application, having customer information in there. What have they purchased? What invoices, having those most recent invoices at your employees' fingertips so that they can intelligently service your customers, cross-sell, upsell, and most importantly, drive maximum customer experience for your key customers and prospects. And then, as I've noted before, integrating with game-changing technology. And I think everyone's going to be very excited about this next area of our presentation, XAuthor by Apttus, which I will not steal Jarrett's thunder, and we'll move right into that. So, Jarrett, moving on to you. And as Jarrett's getting ready, I just want to let everyone know that the first time I saw XAuthor, I was completely blown away. I am a Salesforce super user, and I just could not believe my eyes in terms of how powerful this application is. So without further ado, let's turn it over to Jarrett.
Okay, thank you, John. So I'm just going to spend really a couple minutes, one, just introducing everyone to Apttus. I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with Apttus in general, but we're a global organization. We were founded in 2006. We have a little over 1,500 employees, 500 customers. We've gone through 3 rounds of funding, but we are very deeply ingrained in the Salesforce ecosystem. We're one of the earlier partners on the App Exchange, and we work very closely with Salesforce themselves. And for those unaware or unfamiliar with Apttus, really our core focus and footprint is around quote to cash. So we're not going to spend really any time looking at any of these other solutions today but XAuthor, but this will just give everyone an idea of really kind of the footprint of Apttus and where we fit in within the Salesforce ecosystem. There's really 3 main pillars. Configure price quoting, which is managing very complex or even simple quotes. contract lifecycle management, and even things in the revenue side like billing, order management, e-commerce. But you can see where Apttus has been focused over the last 10 years. And again, today we are just focused on our XAuthor technology. So with that being said, we'll kind of dive into the XAuthor product. I'm going to spend a couple minutes just doing a quick overview of the tool, and then we'll actually look at a live demonstration. So there really is kind of 5 main focuses or kind of core areas that we see our customers either adopting or leveraging XAuthor today within their organizations. And the main one, and probably the most popular, is where we're going to begin, and this is actually where we're going to focus the demonstration on. So for everything else that I'll talk through today on this slide, we're not going to actually show any use cases around, but obviously if anybody's interested or wants to learn more, we can definitely show a deeper dive. But the main one that we're seeing today is if you just think about how Salesforce is being used within any organization, and it's an amazing platform, might be managing your opportunities, your forecasts, your contacts, your campaigns. You might have Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, you name it. People are using Salesforce for hundreds, thousands of different ways. And Excel is still being used as well around the organization. And what you can do with Salesforce now is take anything that you're currently doing and surface it into an Excel spreadsheet. You might ask yourself, why would you do that? Well, if you think about just the user experience today in the browser, if you want to make changes to many records, typically what you'd have to do is you go into each record one at a time, you make any number of changes to the fields, you click Save, and then you repeat this process. If you're changing 50 or 100 records over a day, it's a very time-consuming exercise. So a lot of users are punching out of Salesforce. They're downloading their information into Excel. They're managing their lists, their opportunities, their contacts in an Excel spreadsheet, and nothing is getting back to Salesforce. It's because people love to work in Excel. They're comfortable, they're familiar. So with XAuthor, you can continue to work in Excel but be in Salesforce. You can bring out any objects, any fields from Salesforce into an Excel spreadsheet, and you can basically, you'll see this very quickly, you're going to start driving Salesforce adoption. People will be using data more frequently, the usage will start going up, and I'll show you this in the example where I can make changes to any number of records very quickly in a matter of seconds and update those records back into Salesforce. The second kind of use case that we're seeing quite often is just think about how Excel is now being used within an organization. You know, people are managing entire business processes, whether it's, you know, financial rate cards, budgeting, project management, quota allocation, huge complex spreadsheets that probably wouldn't ever be brought onto Salesforce, but there's a lot of standalone issues that come with Excel today. People are emailing files around, people are storing the spreadsheets on their desktop. Really no one knows who has access to what, if they should even have access to that spreadsheet, and can you even report on what people are doing. So with XAuthor, you can take these existing spreadsheets, allow users to continue working in that environment, which is Excel, but bring Salesforce in on the back end. So all of your enterprise controls, your data, your rules, your routing, your permissions, everything that you've set up in Salesforce is now being applied to those spreadsheets. On the third side of this, definitely where we see a lot of use cases as well is around just kind of data administration, how users are maintaining Salesforce today. So Salesforce admins, super users, being able to do mass uploads, very different than the data loader where you're restricted by one object, you're working on CSV files, you're working on IDs. There's no limit to the number of objects with XAuthor, and you can work on objects simultaneously. And lastly, in that kind of category is data migration. So being able to move any subset of data, whether it's across multiple objects from one environment to another. Very powerful function in here. And then the last two, which again, we're not going to show today, but we'll just quickly talk about, you can use Excel as a cloud calculator, meaning you can be in Salesforce, fill out all the information through a visual force page or just through a standard record, click a button, a standard Salesforce button, which can open up an Excel spreadsheet completely behind the scenes in the cloud, run a bunch of calculations, and return the results. So think of some of the most complex Excel spreadsheets out there today that are running huge amounts of data sets, running very complex calculations. You can continue to leverage those spreadsheets completely as a touchless system. And then obviously reporting. I mean, everyone is using Excel in some way for reporting. People love the dashboards, the analytics, the charts, the pivot tables, the slicers, and you have a lot of great functionality inside of XAuthor by being able to pull Salesforce data out and leverage Excel reporting. So again, for everyone out there, what we're focused on today, just think about how Salesforce has evolved over the last 15 or so years. Started in the browser, you can now access through your mobile phone, a tablet, wearable. Salesforce is still the same in the back end. The security, the performance, the scalability is the exact same. You're just accessing it through a different user interface, and that's exactly what we're doing here as well. Excel is now kind of part of this page as well, where you now have Excel as another user interface where you can interact with Salesforce. Quick just list of customers of XAuthor. Really, this is just to highlight different industries, different verticals. Everyone is using Excel in some way. Just to point out a couple in here, GNC, they run all of their marketing promotions. So if you ever see a buy one, get one free in one of their stores or anywhere someone sells a GNC product, that started in an XAuthor app. I'll jump to Salesforce. They do all their quota allocation today internally within Salesforce with XAuthor as well. So, but a quick list of just some of our customers. And then use cases, this probably doesn't even begin to scratch the surface, but just kind of categorizing and grouping things into where we're seeing XAuthor used most often and which groups, so you can just start seeing kind of the trends that we're noticing as well. So with that being said, we are going to jump into the product and actually go through a demonstration of it. So I've opened up Excel on my desktop. I'm running Excel 2013. We support 2007, 10, 13, and 16. And you'll notice on the top part of the screen, we have 2 additional tabs that are now available. We have a designer tab, which is actually where you're setting up these XAuthor apps or these XAuthor templates. We're not going to spend any time in the designer today, but just know there's no programming or no coding required. You can either take an existing template or start brand new, and the designer's job is simply figuring out what objects, what fields, where do you want the data to go, and how do you want the user experience to work. What we're going to start with today and look at is how does an end user interact with XAuthor. So I'm going to come over into our XAuthor for Excel tab, and I'm going to simply connect. And by connecting, just like you would connect today through the browser, it's asking for my username and password. So exact same process. We do support single sign-on. And I'm going to connect, and 2 things are happening right now. Is one, it's going to recognize who I am as a user. So everything that's been set up in Salesforce, what data I have access to, my permission, all of that is based in Salesforce, and I'm going to have to follow that exact same logic inside of XAuthor. The other thing that's going on is you'll notice there's an apps button, and this button is allowing me to see the apps or the Excel templates that have been given access to me. So within XAuthor, we are storing the Excel spreadsheets in Salesforce for 2 reasons. One, you have a central repository, which is Salesforce, that you can manage your versions, your templates that are actually activated, and you also can manage who has access to these templates. So all the administration is done through Salesforce. So I'm going to come in here and just open up our use case that we're going to look at today for a demo. And, you know, I think this actually is probably the most common one that we have today that we see with our customers, which is you have account executives, you have sales managers that are basically managing opportunities in Salesforce, their forecast, their pipeline. And most likely an account executive has more than one opportunity. Some have hundreds. And often weekly, monthly, daily, people are updating these opportunities, whether it's the stage, whether it's the amount, whether it's the notes. You're just updating the fields to make sure that the company is getting a proper forecast. And again, back to that original story, people are downloading their opportunities out of Salesforce and managing it in Excel. And what's happening is you're no longer getting the updated forecast back to Salesforce for reporting, for dashboards, for visibility. So I've brought down the template from Salesforce. And a couple things before we actually run it. The designer's job is to determine what fields from what objects and where you want the data to go. So in this particular example, why don't I zoom in a little bit, is you'll notice I'm going to get account name in column A, opportunity name in B, and so on. And there's 2 sets of menu items that come with every single XAuthor application. On the left-hand side, I like to call these configurable menu items, meaning when I click a button here, any number of things can happen. In this particular example, when I clicked on all opportunities, a user didn't have to really do anything. They clicked a button, and in the back end, something happened. In this case, a query ran, and it got me a list of opportunities. It also looked at the accounts and ran a query to get me a list of contacts. It also then ran a very simple macro that refreshed my pivot table. You also can have menu items that prompt a user to provide some type of input to run those queries. And in this case, I'm allowing the screen to be present that a user can say, I only want to see opportunities that equal this stage or these stages or this region or industry or any combination of those filters. So that's why these are configurable menu items. You can have them set up to be basically queries that run behind the scenes or queries that a user has to provide input to. So we'll go back and look at this. And at this point in time, now that I've retrieved the data, a couple things to point out is all field level security is supported, all data types are supported. So if I look at a field like stage, you'll notice my pick list values are automatically brought over. Dependent pick lists, multi-select pick lists, record types, all supported. I can come in here, jump around from record to record, just make a few changes. Maybe we want to change an amount, maybe we want to change a date. And whenever I'm ready, I can just simply click Save, and all the fields that I've made changes to real time are being pushed back to Salesforce. And if there was any logic sitting in Salesforce, like workflows, approval processes, triggers, continues to work the same way. So you can quickly see just, I can change any number of records, any number of fields, hundreds, thousands of records, and make those changes real time back to Salesforce. And why don't we actually look at one example in Salesforce. We'll make a change together and actually look at that change. So let's pick Fleet Overhaul. You can see, let's just make sure, see if it's up to date right now. So we have a current close date of 12/12 and a stage of number 5. So we'll come back into XAuthor. We will change the stage to Prove, and maybe the close date is actually 11/11. And again, we'll come in here and click Save. So we've now updated that opportunity. Again, we'll jump back into Salesforce. We'll refresh the screen. Keep your eye on close date and stage. You'll notice the 2 fields have changed. And anything that Salesforce is controlling, last modified, you'll notice it updated by who made the update, by the time, the date, and again, any logic in Salesforce will continue to get updated. And by the way, the tool is completely offline. So you can get a list of data down from Salesforce using XAuthor, and at this point in time, I could work completely offline. I could get on a plane, I could be disconnected, I might not have internet access, I can make any number of changes, and whenever I'm ready, I can simply just connect, click Save, and my updates will go back. A couple other things to point out is, what happens if you hit a validation rule or a required field? So I'm going to show a quick example. I came in here and I tried to say no to services, and you'll notice what happened when I click Save. We're getting a validation message. This message is being controlled by Salesforce. We're not storing it in Excel. We're not creating it in XAuthor. The exact same message that you would see in the browser is being brought back to the user, and it's telling me that I can't do this based on what I just did. And there's a lot of things that you can do as a designer when you're setting up these templates. If I made changes to 10 records, and let's say 9 were successful and 1 had an issue, you can tell the system what do you want it to do. Do you want it to allow partial saves? Do you want it to do an all-in-one rollback? So the designer has a lot of flexibility on how you want these applications to work at the time of saving, retrieving, and so on. So we'll go back to kind of this original example of, if I want a user to provide input. So maybe I want to just see opportunities for a specific account. So I actually told the system now, just show me opportunities for Acme. And based on that, I didn't have to go to another tab. So again, there's no limit to the number of menu items. So a user has different ways to get different data sets in by just picking different menu items here. So I'm now seeing the opportunities for that account. And because we can sequence and control the actions in XAuthor, not only am I seeing the opportunities for just that account, I'm also seeing the contacts for Acme as well. And our chart and pivot table has re-refreshed to reflect what's happening on sheets 1 and 2. You might have one driven by picking a specific user, or maybe you want to see opportunities by a campaign. But again, you can have different menu items driving different data results. So we'll retrieve everything again. And I want to show one last thing in here, which is creating brand new. So far what we did was we retrieved existing data down from Salesforce. We made a few changes, but what about creating new? So To the left, these are what we call configurable menu items, meaning you can set them up however you would like. You can customize them. You can change the columns, the filterings. And on the right-hand side, these are more static menu items, meaning if I wanted to allow a user to create new records, then I could allow this Add Row button to be available. And now what I can allow a user to do is simply come in here and click Add Row. It's now setting up XAuthor to create a brand new record. And what I did right here to get this screen to pop up is I double-clicked my mouse. And by double-clicking, just like how a lookup works in Salesforce today, I'm providing accounts as a lookup. You might not necessarily need all the accounts downloaded. You might have 1 million accounts. So at this point in time, I'm seeing a list of accounts. Again, the columns that are in here, the fields above, everything is set up by a designer, and everything can be customized. So I might come in here and say, I want to create a new account or a new opportunity for Acme. And just for the sake of time and not wanting to type everything, I'll copy what's below, click Save, and you'll notice instead of an update, we're doing an insert, creating a brand new record. So inserts, updates, upserts, even deletes. Again, these are all optional menu items, so if you didn't want someone to be able to delete records, then don't even have the delete button on here. One last thing to point out in this use case is, it's a very simple example of this, but just keep your eye on the quarter. So currently right now for this record, row 7, the quarter is currently in Q2. So don't just think of XAuthor as just another user interface to Salesforce. Think of this part of your enterprise, basically business processes that you set up. So with XAuthor, I can make a change. We're going to change the close date to 12/12. We're going to click Save. Notice what happens is I didn't actually change the quarter and say it's Q4, is I sent information to Salesforce. I changed the date. I leveraged something in Salesforce, either a rule, a workflow, a business logic, and it changed the quarter, and it brought back the results there. So you can use XAuthor to make changes in mass volume or just for one record or one field. Send it to Salesforce, leverage something in the back end, whether it's calculations, whether it's triggers, and bring back the results of it. So XAuthor can be incorporated in all your business processes where it makes sense. Very last thing in here, and I know I keep saying very last thing, but I think it just further shows kind of what you can do with the product is because there's so many things just on a simple list that can be leveraged now, is, we also have chatter capabilities. So for those of you leveraging chatter today or just looking to increase chatter adoption, this is pretty amazing. I mean, you can pull up your chatter feed right on the right-hand side. I can look at what I'm following. I can continue working on the left-hand side. This will just refresh as the day goes on. I can comment. I can collaborate. I can now post things, whether it's the whole workbook, worksheets, to a group or mention somebody. And actually something coming out soon, I'll actually be able to click on an account or an opportunity and see that record's chatter feed. So bringing chatter right to where a user is working, which is Excel. I guess one last thing, I keep saying that again, is, I just wanted to show something around what we're really doing with XAuthor today. So anything in Excel that you're used to today, sorting, filtering, running macros, pivot tables, it's native Excel. So you can still leverage any Excel functionality. But I do want to show you what happens when someone might sort. So sorting is a very reasonable request. But if I was to copy, and what I'm about to just do, take this data and try to sort it. If you think about just data integrity, what about the data to the left and the data to the right? If we're going to allow users to sort, we need to make sure we're capturing that entire range. So that's exactly what we're doing. When I click sort, you'll notice what happened. XAuthor immediately expanded the entire range to capture the entire record. And now when someone sorts, we know that data integrity has still been withheld and someone can go forward and still sort. So again, there's a lot of additional things that have been added here to make sure that for data integrity, that this tool will be performing exactly like Salesforce and all be being based on a user's profile and permission. And that's it. So yeah, I mean, we're today focusing on this use case around adoption, usage, but from that one slide, you could see there's a lot more use cases out there. There's a lot of advanced functionality, but I think this is a good starting point.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jarrett. Great job. Okay, so we will now move into the Q&A section of the presentation. And we do have a few questions that have popped up from the audience. And so the first one, and this will go to Jarrett at XAuthor. What versions of Excel are supported?
Yeah, so Microsoft came out with this ribbon concept in 2007. So back to 2007, Excel 2010, 13, and 16 are all supported. And actually last week we made a couple interesting announcements around Google Sheets and Office 365 Online. But that's what's supported today.
Perfect. Okay, the next one actually goes to Endowance. And so the question was, how often do you see customers with data quality issues? We actually see this quite often. In most instances, we do see data quality issues. And so as I noted in the presentation, that is one of the key areas that we focus on in the implementation, is to make sure that you're not in a situation where you have garbage in, garbage out. And with CRM, and specifically with Salesforce and XAuthor, if the information that you are managing and analyzing is not completely accurate, then the user adoption and user productivity is certainly going to fail and suffer. So yeah, definitely data quality issues is very, very important, and we will work with you to make sure that it is as clean as possible. Okay, we have another question, and this one is actually for XAuthor. Are custom objects supported?
They are. Any object, standard or custom, and there's no limit to the number of objects in a single XAuthor application. So you can have any number of objects across any number of worksheets, standard or custom.
Perfect. Okay, and we also have another question that just came in, and this one is for XAuthor again. What languages are supported?
So all languages, locale is supported, so whatever is in Salesforce today. So, you know, if your Salesforce is set up to be in Japanese or German or so on, that will be the exact same. So we're not changing any support from the Salesforce side or from the Excel side. If your Salesforce is in a language, that's what the language will be pulled in here.
Perfect. Okay, and then the question geared to XAuthor, specifically on XAuthor. The question is, how long does the implementation usually take?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for an application like this that we're looking at right now, it's pretty straightforward. It's one object or two objects. It's a handful of fields. So to actually set up something like this, you're probably looking at about 30 minutes to an hour. And again, there's no coding in here. You're just kind of mapping some fields in here, setting up a couple menu items. How do you want the data to come out? So you could get something like this up and running in a day. But when you start thinking about how this should probably fit in with your business processes, you know, do you want to do certain things in Salesforce, then launch XAuthor, then finish some things and go back into Salesforce? That would just be part of a typical, almost like Salesforce implementation when it comes to adding anything to how you're using Salesforce today. But to create any of these XAuthor apps, this one, again, 30 minutes, some of the more complex ones, a couple hours, a couple days, but you can get up and running with these type of templates very quickly.
Excellent. And the way we see implementation questions is it kind of hovers around three areas, you know, simple, medium to complex, and that revolves around how detailed, and you mentioned this a little bit, Jarrett, how detailed your business processes are and what you're looking to actually implement. So a lot of times, you know, implementations of certain key areas such as this could take anywhere from, you know, days to weeks, depending upon the amount of complexity and what you're trying to, what your goals are. And of course, we can have detailed discussions with people offline to understand exactly what they're trying to accomplish and give them a much more accurate time frame in terms of how long that actually takes. Okay, and let me see, do we have any other questions out there? We'll give a slight pause. I think that is it. So we don't have any further questions. So thanks again, everyone. We're going to let you leave a little early today. We hope you enjoyed the presentation on Drive End User Adoption in Salesforce with Endowance and Xauthor. We certainly appreciate your time. And again, if you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to us directly, and we will love to work with you. So thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.